You guys heard about that concept of a second brain? The amount of information that we're consuming and the amount of things that we're doing every single day is just beyond what our human evolved brains can handle. And when you're running a business and you need to hold on to a lot of that information, like you need a second brain, you need a technology system to place that information. Now I've got this business, now I've got to remember the details for 15 hotel units. I need a place to put this. So I turned back to a tool that I'd used in the past, which is great for knowledge-based management as well as for project management, and made one that worked for my STR business. I could keep track of all the information I need about each unit, policies, owner's information, contact information, appliance information, FAQs, like how do we fix the heater, how do we troubleshoot the hot tub, all that stuff lives in this knowledge base now, in this second brain. But then I can also manage my projects out of it. All of the renovation projects, all of the recurring tasks.
What's going on, STR Nation? This is your host and brother from another mother, Emanuele Pani, here with the man himself, Mr. Mike Riley. What's going on, Riles?
It's been an awesome week. Last week, my wife, Sierra, ran the Marine Corps Marathon, 26 miles at 26 weeks pregnant. So I'm super, 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 super proud of her, and just grateful that she had the opportunity to do that. So I had to share that with everybody. It's been a really encouraging and inspiring last 7 days. So, and this podcast was also very inspiring. And I know it is for the listeners too. But what about you, man?
Dude, I woke up this morning in South Florida, had a beautiful 62 degrees. And it's like that time of the year that you're like, it's lovely to be here. I, again, not at any level like Sierra, but I got back into running. So I'm up on my long runs, 7 miles on Saturday mornings. And I'm super excited because I got some Jolly Ranchers I'm going to bring with me tomorrow. I don't know if you guys have ever done long runs, but I like to have a little treat in that the midpoint, all right? And I run far from the house. So I get to a point that I'm so far that I have to go home, and I better keep running because if not, it's going to take me forever to walk home. Mm-hmm. And that's when I give myself a Jolly Rancher. And so I'm already fantasizing about my Jolly Rancher tomorrow. Having said that, I love the show today. We had Michael Dewey on the show. He's been around within Secrets for a while. He started on the STR side, then he's been getting into the boutique hotels. And what I loved about him was his brain and just the fascinating nature of the human being and just his relentless drive of optimization and improvement of the individual to get to enjoy life more. That's the best way I have to describe it. That's the feeling that I got from the show. Somebody that's studying himself and studying his own potential and what he's choosing to create, and then figuring out, okay, what is the best way for me to do it? And there's this, I find people are that inspiring. Those are the type of people that I like to consider friends. I was having a coaching call the other day. I'm like, if you have somebody in your life that is one of those, I can't catch a break person, get those people away from you. Just get them away. Instead, get yourself a Michael. Somebody that's you guys should read this book. It's called Second Brain, Building a Second Brain. And I immediately went to buy it, right? Because I'm fascinating person, recommendation, yes, right? And so, yeah, dude, I loved it. It was such a fun show.
Yeah. If I could just describe Michael in one word, it's intentional. It's intentional about what he wants out of life and for himself and his family and his partner and his kids and his business, and he's just very intentional. One of the things that I've picked up on with him, and I picked up on it a lot in this podcast, was I study a lot of really high functioning entrepreneurs, really successful folks. And one little thing in interviews, when people ask them questions, for instance, Warren Buffett does this, Charlie Munger does this, Elon Musk does this. When the interviewer asks them a question, he and they take a break and think about how they want to answer that question. They actually think about that question. And Michael is very intentional in answering the questions that we asked him. Very similar to some of the really high performing folks that are out there in the world. So he's very calm, but also it's been very cool to see him go through the entire journey of, working in corporate, building this business as really a side hustle, and then having a realization of hey, I can actually make this my full-time thing and work in 2 jobs basically at the same time. And then we all go through that terror barrier of, wow, my business is growing and I can leave my W-2 now. I may not make that much money, or more than my W-2, but I'm just going to make that jump because I'm going to make a commitment to my future self and my family and my wife. And he's done it. And the way he's thought through it, is really inspiring. And then what he's built with Hospitality HQ, the Notion AI operating system that I now use, has been a complete game changer in my business and Chris Petsy's business that has saved us hours upon hours and upon hours, a lot of money, and a lot of different tools that we were using is now consolidated into this operating system and our second brain. So it's really inspiring and revealing, intentional show today.
So if you guys are not able to tell, both Mike and I really enjoyed, one, the show, what we learned, and two, just our guest. And so without further ado, we'd like to introduce you to Michael Dinwiddie. Give people a little bit of a background as to how Michael ended up on the STR Secret podcast today.
Like a lot of people listening, I was a person listening 3 years ago, and I worked at Expedia and Vrbo, and I've been doing customer experience management for a while there. And I just always loved short-term rentals. I think I added it up once. My wife and I, in the 10 years we've been together, I think we've stayed at 60 short-term rentals across the world. And that was just our preferred way of traveling. And I had this dream that I would retire early and I would buy a traditional bed and breakfast somewhere, and I would just meet people from around the world, and that would be what I did. So I wanted to do that. And then my brother, during the COVID pandemic, he bought 2 Florida properties and started doing short-term rentals. And I was like, oh, I can do that now. Like, that's something that we can do now. And so I went, down the journey of learning about how to find a good property, and bought my first property in 2022, which I just loved everything about it. Like a lot of people do, you fall in love with the hospitality side of it. And I loved creating the space. I loved helping the guest. I loved the money that was coming in because it ended up being a super profitable property here in Washington State. And I just saw like, oh, I could leave my job. Like I could do this for a few other people, and that would be enough for me to leave my job and to be able to focus on what I love full time.
So is that what you did?
So that's what I did. Yep. I tried to grow the business myself and didn't get very far, didn't get very much traction. I joined STR Secrets about 2 years ago and added 2 or 3 clients and some consulting. And then about a year ago, I met the owners of a boutique hotel, a 15-unit property on the Washington coast, and we just created a great relationship together, and they wanted me to manage their property for them. And I knew taking on a 15-unit boutique hotel, which needed renovations and all that, was just not something I could do anymore as a part-time job. I couldn't do that while still working at Expedia. And so I was able to negotiate basically with those owners. We essentially negotiate a salary in a way where instead of the management fee coming based off of revenue, we estimated what the annual management fee would be and then broke that into 12 monthly payments, basically. So now I get that on a monthly basis. And having that gave me and my wife the confidence and the floor to be able to make the jump and to do this full time. So left my job in January, and that same day I drove out to the coast and spent like 2 or 3 weeks living and breathing a hotel renovation and trying to figure out how to manage a hotel. So that's my story.
Lovely. I have so many ways we could go.
I know.
One of the things that also because it's top of mind from our show from last week, where we talked about all the Airbnb updates. You kind of slid in there that you work for Expedia and for Vrbo, which is kind of like the empire, like the other side of the empire, right? It's not as evil as Airbnb. Like they don't have Airbnb now, I imagine them walking with like that Star Wars kind of theme song, right? Brian Chesky runs through the halls. But now we have Vrbo and Expedia. So share with us something that you learned from Expedia and from Vrbo that is now helping you run your boutique hotel.
What I learned is something that Expedia does really well, which has made it as big as they are. And not a lot of people understand this, is they're really good at acquisitions. And so it's like a 25-year-old company, but most of their growth has been in acquiring other travel companies. And so there's so many brands people don't even realize are associated with Expedia. Hotels.com, Travelocity, TripAdvisor at one point. I think they spun that back out. They acquired like 5 or 6 years ago. So they've just acquired a bunch of companies to grow. And the beauty of that from our point of view is, especially on the hotel side, is you just need to have your Expedia account. You just need to have your boutique hotels listed on Expedia, and then they're shown to like 7 or 8 other US-based companies and like 300 non-US-based global companies around the world as well. So you get a lot of distribution by working with a large company like Expedia, which is cool on the boutique hotel side. Not really applicable on the Airbnb side, except for Vrbo. And I would almost say, like, my experience with that is I think Vrbo probably was a better company before it was a part of Expedia, because they had resources and were able to care about the details of the host and the guest experience. But now it's just this fractional percent of the overall Expedia. And so it just doesn't get the attention and the resources to develop and to make it a better, more user-friendly tool. So, yeah.
I learned a lot working for a big company, at Google and a couple other big companies that did a lot of acquisitions too. So I can relate there. One of the biggest things that I did learn though at Google was corporate was not for me and I needed to get out. When was that realization that you had the same thing, that you wanted to do something a little bit different than, obviously working for Expedia, working for Google, very good jobs, very good companies. But when did you have that aha moment? Walk us through what that looked like.
I mean, a lot of it comes down to who you're working with and like the leaders that you report to. So when you work in any company, big or small, but I feel like especially when you get into massive, Fortune 500 companies, there's just so much politicking. And if you don't get to choose who your manager is, it changes every 6 months or a year just based off of promotions and role changes and stuff like that. So I got put with 2 managers in a row, which just weren't the type of people I wanted to grow up to be. And then I would come and be in the mastermind. I'd see Mike Sjogren, I'd see Mike Riley, and be like, the lifestyle that they have and the way that they're spending their time, that's what I want to be, when I grow up. And so I think having those people in place who are, who inspire you and who help you elevate your vision is so critical when you're a high achiever who wants to, personally grow yourself, your income, and your lifestyle. And I just didn't have that. I don't think many people have that at Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I had a similar realization. My boss came to see me. This was not at Google. This is the company I worked before Google. My boss came to see me, and he came to see me a lot. Like every 2-3 weeks, he wanted to come to Nashville. Great guy. I liked him, but he always wanted to get out of the house and get away from his family and come hang out till 2 a.m. with me while we take out clients and stuff. And I was like, this is just not. He asked me one time, he said, like, what do you want to do next? Like, what's your next move? What do you want to go into management? Do you want to grow? I was like, I don't want your job. Like, I know that. And that's when I had the realization of like, all right. And I almost got into network marketing. I've told E this all the time. He hears a lot. I almost got into network marketing because a guy almost pulled me into it because he got me thinking about what's the bigger vision for us. So like you said, it's getting around the right people and then just kind of taking a little bit of a jump at some point,
But what you do learn about when you work in big companies, especially compared to like entrepreneurial single leader companies, is you do see how systems and team collaboration works is extremely important. And one of my best takeaways from my time at Expedia is one of their core values is trust one another, something like that. So it's essentially around trust your fellow employees. Because for one, you're just a cog in the machine, as a lot of people talk about, but it's true. Like, you'll work on something, but then you're totally reliant on someone else to do something with that and to make the business better. Because in my business, if I want to have significant impact, I just need to prioritize a project, and then that will change the way my business is completely, which is awesome. But as you grow and as you scale, and once you're a big company, you need to have team members, and you need to have tools in place that will empower them. And then you just need to be able to step back and let other people do the work. And so learning to trust other people to do their work, I think, is something that was one of the best lessons I learned at Expedia, for sure.
I think it's a big lesson for people as they evolve into entrepreneurship, because I think we have maybe slightly misunderstood what entrepreneurship is. I think most people confuse entrepreneurship for owning a business and having a job but not having a boss, which is kind of some part of it. And also, if you don't have a team, you don't have people that respond to you, you don't have a plan of selling this thing or growing it or replacing yourself as the CEO, are you an entrepreneur, or are you just somebody that bought himself a job and created a life, but you're not an entrepreneur, right? Like an entrepreneur, there's a key component that is elevating to CEO and outside of CEO, and then potentially selling it, right? And so there is that kind of piece. But I wanted to talk to you about the jump. Like you made a jump, right? Like there was this moment that you're like, first of all, you went from STRs in Florida to kind of the hotel of your vision. It kind of sounds like, right? Like a couple of years later. And I think I remember us speaking at that time, and there was this element of like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like, and I needed to know yesterday, and it's today. And
that's
so
the exact conversation,
right? I'm having an issue. And so talk to us about the jump, and also talk to us about emotionally what that was, right? Because I've been talking to people, and I had a discussion today with somebody about courage. And it's the concept of like life gives you opportunity to have courage, and then you get to actually have courage, right? Like you actually have to take the jump. And then once you jump, you still need courage, because making the jump in a way, it's the easiest thing for you to do, because you quit the job, make the jump, and then fast forward, you're in Washington at a 3-month renovation of a hotel, which is not something that Michael was doing before. And so there it takes more courage to continue to like go through that moment, that valley, right, that you're in. So guide us through that.
What helps is when you just love it, you know? So this was just something I was so excited to do that it was like a thrilling jump. And I'm a super analytical, like process-oriented person, and my wife is as well. So to get to that point where we were ready on January 7th to leave Expedia and to pivot into, Michael 2.0. There's a lot of, preparation mentally and physically for that. So literally, like, we made sure that we had a runway of cash, because we might not be making very much money. We're definitely going to be making a little bit less money for a while. And so, we had prepared and had cash set aside that we could pull from and know we could easily continue our lifestyle without changing anything for a good 6 months. But we'd also ran the spreadsheet and looked at, if we take this on and then now I'm doing this full time, like we could clearly see a path to 3xing our income in the next year or two without doing anything differently, just by continuing to add STRs and maybe another hotel partner or something like that. So just the opportunity was super exciting. And so I think that preparation led to it not being as scary as most people think, which I'm grateful for, because there's been other times in my life when I've tried to make a big jump like that and it's been terrifying. So I think those two components of loving it and having prepared and see a clear path made it super just fun to do. To your other point, we're renovating this hotel. I've committed to the owners of this property that, we're going to crush it and it's going to be worth their investment in these renovations, and that we're going to get great bookings and everything like that. But then running a hotel is it's quite different from running a short-term rental in general. Like the tech stack is very different, for one. So there's 3 or 4, platforms a lot of people talk about for short-term rental management, Repeatable, Hostaway, things like that. It doesn't really work. Those don't really work in the hotel side. So one of the best ones is Cloudbeds. A lot of people use that. So we started using Cloudbeds, and it was just like I had to learn this whole nother tool, had to learn Expedia, had to learn Booking.com. Even though I worked there, I had no idea how to do that side of the business. So there's just like all these paths. And then I've got to figure out a phone system. I have to figure out how to answer phone calls and messages from guests at 15 units versus just one. And it's just like a whole lot of new stuff happening in the month of, January this year, which is when we talked, and it was just like, do you have systems? How do I learn how to do all this stuff? Luckily got some great resources through the Boutique Hotels Secrets Mastermind group and figured it all out. I don't know, just like learned it, talked to people who are already doing it, used them as resources to do it, which I think is super important to getting to that point. And then one of the other things that was a real game changer at that time was, I'll pivot a little bit and into talking about systems that scale, which has been something I've really been leaning into this year, is when you have 3 or 4 short-term rentals, you can remember a lot of the details. You know who your cleaner is. You've got their phone number in your phone. You know what brand of washing machine is at the property. So if it breaks, you can look that up or whatever. You know those little details. They're in your head. You can keep it in your head when you have that many properties. But once you add 15 units at once, honestly, even once you go from like 3 or 4 to 5 or 6, your brain just can't hold all that. And now you're responsible for responding to guest messages from more people. And for one person to do that, it becomes a full-time job or just really hard. And so you need to start scaling. You need to start adding team members. but you can't add team members because all that information is in your head. So there's like this like catch-22 of like, you need to scale, but you can't scale. But sometimes you're like, just momentum is forcing you to scale. I had a big jump, which is, I think there's actually like a psychological or like a business reason for that. I just read the book, The Science of Scaling. And I think I accidentally applied the principles of that by jumping to the next level very quickly, which was that I had to completely change the way that I operated my business in a very short period of time and level it up to a system that would work at scale. And so for me, that was using a tool I had used in the past to build a second brain. Have either of you guys heard about that concept of a second brain?
I've not. No, I'm still working on my first most of the time.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know I got two.
So, man, I love the concept of a second brain. There's this book by Tiago Forte called Building a Second Brain. I think I discovered it like 5 years ago. And the premise that I always come back to is our human brain has evolved and is amazing and it can do so much, but technology has evolved exponentially over the last 20 years. And the amount of information that we're consuming and the amount of things that we're doing every single day is just beyond what our human evolved brains can handle. So for like, we consume between 6 and 30 gigabytes of information every single day, from social media, from articles we read, from books we read, from videos we watch, from podcasts like this that we listen to. There's just so much content coming in that our brain like filters it and then dumps most of it. And when you're running a business and you need to hold on to a lot of that information, like you need a second brain, you need a technology system to place that information. And so I use a tool called Notion, and that is like something that I had used before when I was trying to build a second brain in my personal life, a place where I could keep my children's medical records and the information about my car and the last time that I got my tires changed on my car and like all this like personal life and these details. I wanted a place where I could store that information so I didn't have to keep in my brain, and I wanted it to be really organized and systematized. So I kind of followed this philosophy of building a second brain and the framework that book talks about to do this for my own life. And then I was like, oh, now I've got this business. Now I've got to remember the details for 15 hotel units. I need a place to put this. So I turned back to a tool that I'd used in the past called Notion, which is great for knowledge-based management as well as for project management. And I just ended up getting like 4 different versions of templates for how people can manage their knowledge bases and time. And I just cut and picked and choose and made one that worked for my STR business. And I designed it so that I could keep track of all the information I need about each unit, policies, owner's information, contact information, appliance information, FAQs, like how do we fix the heater? How do we troubleshoot the hot tub? All that stuff lives in this knowledge base now, in this second brain. But then I can also manage my projects out of it. So all of the renovation projects, all of the recurring tasks, all the proactive maintenance, that all runs through it as well. And just was able to luckily build out of necessity, scale and build this system, which worked for my team. And then I was able to just share that with team members who I was quickly hiring as well. And they were able to use this tool to have the information they need to run our business.
All right, guys, I want to take a second and pause right here. If you believe having a second brain would be impactful and using AI to create an operating system in your short-term rental business would be a game changer like it has been for me, I've essentially replaced 3 tools, ChatGPT, hundreds of spreadsheets, and Monday.com, all by implementing this new operating system and saving probably hundreds of hours for my team. Then all you need to do is go to strsecrets.com/ops and apply to learn more about the Notion AI operating system in Hospitality HQ that Michael and I have talked about here on this podcast. Back to the show.
Yeah, that's essential, Michael. A lot of good nuggets there. The one thing I want to point out is, going from, like you said, 0 to 5 listings, like those first 5, you can pretty much keep everything up in your brain. And I like to call it, that's when you're a player on the field, right? You're playing, you're doing everything, you're passing the ball, you're running the ball, you're throwing the ball, you're blocking, you're tackling, you're doing everything yourself. And then once you reach that like 5th listing, it gets a lot, or maybe 6. You absolutely can do it. People can do it up to 10, 15 units, but you're going to be working a lot. You're going to be working 50, 60-hour weeks, and you're probably going to burn out at some point. So that's when, like you said, documenting that information somewhere. For me, it was just in a Google spreadsheet up until 6 months ago, just a Google spreadsheet, hiring really good team members that could use that Google spreadsheet takes them a little bit of time, but they start to learn, they start to create their second brain. But I can't, and this goes, I think, for any business, not just short-term rentals. Like, there's a certain point where you can't be the player anymore. You have to become the coach. You have to build the playbook. And it's really encouraging to see that you've done that. You've kind of followed the blueprint for that and hired the right people, and then built out this tool Notion, which, for everybody listening, I've been using for 6 months now. It's been a total game changer for us. The second brain is a real thing. I can go in there and ask questions, and I don't have to keep everything in a spreadsheet that's not searchable, or spend hours trying to build out that spreadsheet and remember things. It's a total game changer. So when do you recommend people start using a tool like this to build that second brain?
I'd say the people who need it most are the ones who want to treat their business, to want to treat this like a business that they want to scale and they want to profit off of. And especially those who might someday want to sell it at scale, or even as a smaller business to sell it. You need a system. You need it all documented if you're going to do that. So those are the people who will benefit the most from it. The best time to start is honestly when you have 4 or 5 or 6 listings, because it's not so hard. Like, there's not so much that you need to go back and backfill into it. You can kind of build it and then let your team build it as you grow and scale.
I am very fascinated by this conversation because I love high achievers and high performers. And I like to identify myself as one, and I like to hang out with people that are like me or that push me to be better, right? And so as you were telling the story at the beginning, one of my question was like, okay, how is he going to buy back time, right? Because I'm like, you're scaling exponentially, moving, right? So all of these things, I'm like, this is going to be an interesting question. And then Notion is the answer. But then Notion is also, in my mind, is a very high level backward answer. Because in the middle of you having so many things to do and so many moving pieces, you don't do what most people in your situation would do, which is kind of run around with your head cut off, handling things between things, right? Like, that is the normal, like, if you're listening to this and you're scaling, you experience explosive growth, I would put money that 99% of us would go through it, head cut off, chicken, handling things, running around. Instead, Michael does what? Michael is like, I know there is a fire going on, and I'm going to build the system. And people are like, the fire is outside. You're like, yeah, but this system is going to help me with that fire. But the fire was outside, right? So it's like, how do you just like, how did you do that? Like, how did you build a system when there was, things falling apart? Like, you were the guy jumping off the cliff and building the thing on the way down and really painting every angle of it. I mean, like, this has to look pretty and perfect because I am that type of person. Yeah. How did you do that?
Luckily, systems like this aren't built overnight. It's not like this month I'm going to implement this Notion system and it's gonna work. I think building a system like this does take time. And so starting in January, it was figuring out the framework for it. And then through February and March, it was populating the information into that, seeing what worked, seeing what was useful. So it was like a growing, building thing over time. As I've added team members, I think of a call I had recently with one of my new VAs. I hired him because I wanted to make sure that I was not responding to any guest communication anymore. That wasn't the highest and best use of my time. So I hired him, and now week 1, his responsibility is to go into our Notion, to learn about our properties, to read through our SOPs, and to learn about our business. And he's kind of self-training through that and then coming to me with questions. And also he's looking at our, what we call listing master pages, which is that single source of truth, one page in Notion that has everything about that specific property. So he's going through those, and I'm asking him, look for anything confusing or a gap in information that you think would be necessary for you to be able to operate and manage this property here. And so he's learning, but he's critically looking through and trying to figure out the best way, looking for what he needs to understand. And then I just remember this one of those awesome days where I'm driving back from the Washington coast, which is where I have quite a few of my properties. It's like a 3-hour drive. So I give him a call and I say, hey, let's update a few of our listing master pages. Because I know if I sit down at the computer to do it, it takes me 2 hours to type it all out and everything like that. So I tell them, go through anywhere that's blank. You just ask me. I'll see if I can answer it. Go top to bottom on this page, because it's pretty much, at this point, it's pretty much a template that just gets filled out. And so we're going through and spending maybe 30 minutes on each property. And he's asking me, hey, when there's a power outage at the property, what do we do? How do we handle it? If a guest says they need more towels or sheets, how do they handle it? We've got all these questions that he's asking me, and I can answer most of them because I've been operating this business for 2 years, at this point. And there's a few where I was like, honestly, I don't know the answer. Will you jump on Slack and will you ask the owner that question and then put the answer in Notion? And at the start of the call too, I was like, hey, it's going to take a lot longer if you're typing all this out as we go and trying to get it word for word. So what I want you to do is I want you to make sure it's recording and then take the transcript of our conversation and just highlight the whole section in Notion and then ask Notion's AI and paste in the transcript and ask Notion's AI to answer any blanks from that conversation. And it was like, that's how we do it. That's how we build out this system in a sustainable way. That's just one of those little tips that works, And so now every time we have a new listing, I have him put in as much information as he can. And then we just schedule a call where we just talk about everything else and then let Notion AI populate the rest of the fields based off of our transcript.
That's a lovely way of using AI.
Just the amount of time saved on that. And I think a lot of people don't realize, people are going to help, like VAs and adding people on your team are going to help reduce the amount of time that you're spending in the business. But you can use AI for a lot of it now for training purposes as well. Like when I don't have any bosses, but when I need to figure something out, the first place I go is either Google or ChatGPT, right? That's kind of the first place I go. But there's a big gap there for, I want, more of a personal connection with somebody. And that's when I go to my coaches. Like the two coaches that I do have, I go to them to ask more bigger picture things, ask more vision things, because those things are really important. Where are we going? Where do you think I should go with the company? Based on what you know about me. And I feel like my team as well appreciates that. Now we have a internal Google or an internal, ChatGPT that has that information that they don't need to ask me. They just go straight to it. So they don't have to wait on me, but they come to me for the cooler ideas and bigger vision things. And thanks to the Notion system that Michael, you've created for us, they feel better about their productivity. And I do too. I know that, I don't have to respond to them for little questions and little things. And that goes for us. We have 30 properties, but if I had 5 properties or even 3, it makes a ton of sense as well.
Another AI thing that gets me excited. I don't know if you have it or you're implementing it, Mike. I think this is something that only unique brains, like weird brains like mine, would do. But there's Dan Sullivan. He's the guy that wrote the book 10X is better than 2X and Who Not How, some amazing business books. If you look it up, his favorite concept that he teaches and says this is the number one thing you need to know is called an impact filter. And so that's for entrepreneurs who have big visions and who want to do things. You've got lots of ideas and things that you want to do, lots of projects and rocks you could take on. How do you know what to spend time on? And how does your team know what's in your brain when you tell them that this is something that you want to prioritize? So his answer is an impact filter. It's like a 1-page sheet that has maybe 5 or 6 questions on it that you ask yourself before you start a big project or initiative to really see what's the impact of this and to evaluate basically the pros and cons of it. So in the Notion system, anytime I personally go to start a new project, I click the little button that says new project, and then it opens up an impact filter for me. And I'll go through and I'll start answering what am I trying to accomplish? How does this impact me in the short term and then the long term? How does this impact the business? And a couple of other questions are in the best case scenario, if this works out exactly how you want to work out, what does that look like? And then if you only halfway do this, if you don't fully commit, what does it look like? And if I don't do this, what does it look like? So Dan, he would say, Phil, that I'll personally spend 30 minutes on it. It's worth it. And I agree. But now that AI is in our world as well, I'll do the first 2 or 3 questions of that. And then I'll ask the AI to answer some of those other questions. If we go all in on this, what's the impact of it to the business? What's it really look like if I only go halfway? So I'll ask those questions to the AI system. And it gives better responses than I could think of. It looks at them deeper. It thinks and makes connections that I didn't see. And it just gets me really excited. So that at the end, I can say, is this an idea that's worth 50,000? Is this an idea that's worth 100,000? Is this an idea that's only going to save me $500? Like we were looking at moving our guidebooks away from TouchStay and into another platform because it's like, oh, this is going to cost us like $100 per property. And as we scale, that's going to be too much. At the end of the day, it was like, oh, if we do that, it's going to save us like $700 a year. And there's no other financial impact to that decision. So it helped me to be like, okay, not worth our time doing that, So anyways, just a cool little thing that you can do with AI and Notion AI specifically.
That's fascinating. My question for you, right? I wrote down when you decide to take on this hotel, you're working on Michael 2.0. It sounds to me that Michael 2.0 is kind of growing now. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like you're already working on 3 or 4.0. And so one, what are you working on? What are you excited about? And then how does one why is highest and best is? Because you have a very scientific way of going through your life. So I'm curious, somebody with your mind, how does that one choose? Like, what is highest and best? What does that even mean?
It's a great question. I get a lot of ideas from books. And so there's this book called The One Thing. You probably both have read it. Yep. And there's this exercise. I think if you get the book or whatever, you can look online. You can find this little exercise worksheet from that book, which is a really cool way of looking through it. And it basically will ask you a series of questions and help you think through it. So I like following frameworks like that to help me identify my highest and best use. So I recently, in the last couple of months, the hotel is running smoothly. I don't spend very much time on that at all anymore. The STR business, still spending time on that, but I'm hiring local hosts to handle a lot of those day-to-day emergencies and things like that so that I don't have to spend as much time scaling that business anymore. So it's like, okay, now I've got a little bit more time. What do I want? Do I want to just make a short-term rental business that has 100 properties? Maybe I could do that. Is that what gets me really excited? Is that what I want my legacy to be? So I don't have the perfect answer yet, but I did go through this exercise. And one of the things that helped me to do was figure out what my purpose is, what really I want to accomplish. And so I've got posted here right above my computer, made a cute little thing here. So as of September, as of last month, my purpose is to create spaces and opportunities where people can experience memorable moments together. And so having that broader vision for my life personally helps me shape where do I want my business to go, current business and any future businesses as well.
That's a lovely answer. So I do want to be respectful of your time. If people want to connect with you, learn more about you, stay at your properties, understand what Notion is, where can people go find out more about you?
Easy place to find me is on Instagram. Not a crazy Instagrammer, but it's easy. Just Michael.Dinwiddie on Instagram. You can find me and see some of the behind the scenes and family things that I'm doing. For the Notion stuff, it was one of those things that as soon as I built it, I would just show any operator I showed was like, how do I build this? How do I get this? So I did take that template and refined it and made it simpler and just easy for anyone. I think Mike has a link as well to learn more about it. And yeah, people can reach out to me about anything. I'm happy to talk about my journey or Notion or whatever.
Awesome. And then the last question we ask everybody, which it's what's your number one secret to success with short-term rentals?
I didn't know this, and I take questions like this too seriously. So I'm going to think about it for probably the whole next couple of days. Number one secret to success for short-term rentals specifically?
If you want to expand it, you just want to give us all your goodies for life in general. I don't think anybody's going to complain. However you feel called to answer it.
I feel like this is a controversial answer, which is why I like giving it. When guests have a bad experience, I think there's two different ways to handle it. I heard it explained once as two sides of a coin. We can either be like, hey, we'll try to fix that as soon as we can, and just kind of be try to stay even keeled about it. And that's a great response. And that's probably what most people think to do. But human beings, we want to find balance. So if someone's really upset about something and then we're just kind of neutral, it doesn't balance out. But if someone comes and they're having a bad stay or something's going wrong, I train my team to overreact to it, to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's happening. That's our biggest nightmare. This has never happened at our property before. We want to fix it for you. We want to make it better. We want you to have an amazing stay here. And so I teach them to overreact because then the other person balances back towards more neutral and they'll be like, oh, it's okay. Like, don't worry about it. We're sorry that, we upset you. Like, we want, like, thank you for letting us stay here. Thanks for helping us out. And then they're more like balanced out and normal. So it's just kind of a little weird little trick that I have. And honestly, I just try to share my real thoughts about it with them. And so far it's been working and we've been getting good reviews. So
it's lovely. I love that. I don't think anybody has ever shared that. I had a ball of a time. This was a super interesting conversation. You're a super interesting and fascinating mind and brain. And seeing the intention and the amount of love and purpose that you put into things, even the words that you say, right? Like, you are one of the few guests that I've had the pleasure of interviewing that I can actually see you thinking as I'm asking you questions, right? So there is moments of like longer silence than usual. And it's because you're allowing yourself to answer the question. And I really appreciate that much care, that much purpose. And it's evident in the success that you've been able to create, right? Because living with that much intention and purpose creates the things that you're giving so much intention and purpose to. So it's been lovely, man. It's been lovely to watch you grow and everything that you built. And we're very thankful to have you as part of Secrets in all the ways that you're part of Secrets now.
Thank you so much, E. That's awesome to hear. Appreciate it.
Righty. Any last minute thoughts?
Guys, and if you're interested in implementing an operating system that is going to not only save you time, but save your team's time, it also has pre-built SOPs. It is your second brain that is going to replace 3 different tools. It'll replace ChatGPT. It'll replace all those different spreadsheets you have. It'll replace Monday.com. It is going to be your central hub for your business, like it has been for me, like it has been for Chris Petsy. Then all you need to do is go to strsecrets.com/ops, fill out a simple form, and then we will contact you if you seem like you are a good fit for this. So all you got to do is go to strsecrets.com/ops and we will be in touch.